What are the weaknesses in your way of operating at the moment? What are the disadvantages? All of those things can be turned into advantages if you're willing to think about them differently. The second thing is, what can you deny? Now, this is simple, but it's profound because nobody wants to do it. We all have critical ingredients, critical factors in our business, our way of operating that we expect have to be there in order for us to be successful. In strategy, we even have an acronym for it, which means they do exist. Critical success factors. Deny these things. Take them out. Negate them. It doesn't mean they won't be in your way of operating, your project or your solution at the end, but it means you have to get rid of them at the start to free yourself up to think about how else you could deliver value. If we go back to the rental car example, see the customer, they fill out paperwork, rent cars by the day. What if we didn't have to see the customer? There was no paperwork to fill out and no cars available by the day. And this, of course, was before Uber. Zipcar took the car sharing model from Europe, gave it their own spin in America, subscription-based model. The great thing about any disruptive strategy is the more unexpected your idea, the fewer the number of competitors, which gives you a longer lead time in which to establish brand loyalty, new customer base, whatever other metrics are important to your success. You'll literally leave competitors scrambling to catch up. And then finally, what can you scale? We all have such an inbuilt sense of proportion, how tall something should be in relationship to something else, how many of something you should have in contrast to something else. Exaggerate the scale of these things. What's free that can be made expensive? What's expensive that can be made free? If a project takes, $60 billion in 6 years, how can you do that with, $1 billion in 6 months? Exaggerate the scale of these things. I used to work at Frog Design. We did a lot of work with Apple, and this guy, Jonah, wasn't happy with that. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. Didn't want to design for Apple or anyone else. So he was out to dinner with other wannabe entrepreneurs, and this is what they do. They sit around thinking about how to attack lazy, slow-moving industries. They got onto apparel for some reason, got onto socks. Somebody at the table said, "It's so boring that socks have always been sold in pairs. Wouldn't it be crazy if somebody started selling socks in sets of 3? Now, it has to be said that everyone at the table that evening, thought this was the dumbest idea they'd ever heard. Why? Because anybody who's had any management or business expertise, you can't help it. You've been trained in analytical, logical rigor, and you want to judge that idea as good or bad as soon as possible because of the gratification that brings and the decisiveness that demonstrates. So they're sitting around thinking about it. Somebody at the table says, "You know what? The market for 3-legged people is really small." So the idea gets dismissed by everyone except Jonah. In Jonah's mind, the sock category is completely ripe for disruption. So he left Frog Design to start experimenting with an idea he called Little Mismatched. And this is what they do. They sell socks in sets of 3 and none of them match. You can't buy them in pairs no matter how hard you try. But it's not enough just to have a disruptive hypothesis about how you could do something completely different in your business and industry. Disruption for disruption's sake, as I said before, it's just annoying. It has to deliver value. But the only way you're going to find that out is finding ways to run small-scale, low-cost pilots and experiments. Only after doing that did Jonah discover that 8 to 12-year-old girls love socks that don't match. In fact, they love a lot of things that don't match. So they started selling mismatching pajamas, furniture, toys, got a big round of VC capital, $20 million in the first 3 years, opened 6 retail outlets with 150 employees, made 4 millionaires of the people sipping beers at dinner that night. Not bad off the strength of one disruptive hypothesis. Now, what was the problem that they solved? There wasn't one. It's not a problem to buy socks in pairs that match. And this is exactly why nobody was looking at the category in this way before. The other important part of this story is that the disruptive hypothesis, the disruptive thinking comes first. Then you go out and examine the context to see if it has value. Can you imagine doing this the traditional way where you get all the data and the research and then you try and formulate your hypotheses? You get a room full of 8 to 12-year-old girls, you'd line them up, some middle-aged moderator would be there saying, "So girls, tell me, any problems with your socks?" Would never happen.